Hello,
Welcome.
everybody. Happy Monday. Happy week of giving of thanks and a month of thankfulness and a month of opportunity, just like they all are.
Yeah, today's workshop is moving beyond trauma triggers. So we're going to talk about how to pull yourself out of a triggered reaction, how to hold space for somebody else. If you notice that you feel pretty calm, but somebody else that you're interacting with or dealing with is feeling a lot of friction, what you can do, how to move from negative subconscious reactions to conscious choice to improve all of your relationships, and a sensory exercise that will just in a few moments shift you into a state of peaceful presence. So Kevin is going to start by guiding us into some brain balancing and nervous system calming. So we'll all do this together. It's good to have maybe a piece of paper and a pen if you want to jot down any notes from today, and definitely some water nearby. We're going to be doing a little bit of breathing, and sometimes our throats get parched. So grab a drink of water, have that handy.
So just like when we're entering into any type of activity, when we're learning, we're engaged, it always helps to be fully present. And so these brain balancing techniques and some light breath work are going to be the vehicle that we're going to use to get to that place. So we're all in the same balanced mind state, and we can get what's here for us much more readily. It's much more available to us. So the first thing we're going to do is a brain synchronization technique. If you've worked with Kelly or I before, this is probably going to be familiar. And this can be done seated or standing. So for today, I'm going to stand up and show it to you. And Kelly will stay seated and show it to you. So we're simply going to, if you're standing or seating, just start marching in place. The second element we're going to add is a tap of the knee as we're marching. And then the last component is our eyes. So everything is front and center except for our eyes. And those are going to start looking up into the right or the left corner of the room, whichever one you want to start. So everything facing forward, chin parallel to the ground. Kelly's eyes are up and to the right. Mine are up and to the right as well. Get down there on the camera. So we're synchronizing our hemispheres by creating somewhat of an unnatural state in our body, crossing the midline of the body. We're doing something akin to tapping our head and rubbing our belly.
The left hemisphere controls the right side of the body, and the right hemisphere controls the left side of the body.
So we're probably about 20 taps there. So everything stays the same. Watch Kelly's eyes. Just switch to the upper opposite corner of whatever corner you started on.
So now you're looking up and to the opposite side, keeping your chin forward. Just the eyes move up and to the side.
Already, you might start to be feeling some tingles, maybe a yawn rising in your throat. Could be if you had an acute impingement somewhere in your body that was painful, that could be lessening. Well, let's call it probably over 20 there. What do you think?
Yeah.
Okay. So step one of getting balanced fairly quickly. Step two is we're going to bring our breath into the equation. And so there are some fairly simple tools, so to speak, not always easy, but simple, that we can pull anytime from our tool belt in order to shift us back into a more balanced operational state instead of a reactive state. So we just did cross crawls to start. This one I call a bellows breath. It's going to be holotropic in the sense that we're going to stick with our breath, loop the breath. We're only going to go for, let's say, we're going to do 20 breaths, and we're going to see how quickly we can shift us into a more stable, static place. If you are eating, take this one with a grain of salt. A lot of times, if we're doing breathing on a stomach with food in it, that can make us feel not as great. So follow along wherever you're at to the extent that you're comfortable with this one. So for this breath, we're going to breathe like a bellows. Inhaling and exhaling through the mouth, and we're looping the breath. So we're going to combine that with another whole brain posture. So in a nice comfortable seat, cross your right ankle in front of your left. Cross your right wrist over your left as well, and just rest your hands right on your thighs in this crossed wrist posture. So from here, we're going to do 5 of those looping bellows breaths, and go ahead and begin. Light pause, switch the crossing of your wrists, your ankles stay where they're at. 5 more. This time, wrists stay where they're at. Switch the crossing of your ankles. So now left wrist and left ankle are in front. 5 more here. And last time, ankles remain where they're at. Switch the wrists back to their starting position. So now left ankle and right wrist are in front. Last 5 here. Last one, let it all go. So those are just 2 ways in relatively short order. One, using our physiology, crossing the midline of the body. Second, using our breath, utilizing our natural expansive capacity for breathing that we tend to trend away from as we get older, as really powerful tools that can disrupt physiological responses, which are largely what trauma triggers are, bring us back to a place where we have maybe a little bit more clear sky awareness. Maybe there's a shift, just a break in the clouds enough so we have opportunity to then make a different decision, take a different tact, or can hold up that mirror and see what's really going on the inside beneath the triggers. So starting off at the very first step, what's a trauma trigger? I think probably an easier question would be what's not a trauma trigger, because anything can be. And it's going to be hyper personal for each and every one of us. So when we're talking about interpersonal relationships, which so often is how triggers arise, even if it's a twin, we don't know every facet of their experience, everything they've experienced, everything that's going on within their space. Same thing with a parent, same thing with a sibling, same thing with a partner, same thing with a child. We don't know anyone else's experience. So it's really up to us as the practitioners of our lives to have awareness and discernment internally for what we are currently experiencing. So often in life, we trend away towards looking on the inside. One, because we've largely been conditioned away from it with parents, with society, with life, with the thought that the answers are somewhere outside of us. The other challenge is that a lot of times in the West, we're taught that emotions can be dangerous or painful or scary, or we don't look at those in this family. No, 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 just stuff it down, just sweep it under the rug. And this is by and large safety programs that they're passed down through generations. Ways of being that are very much learned in life from an early age that we adopt, and then we say these things are ours. So it could be a child painting on a wall. Oh my gosh, what are you're driving me crazy. Child's not driving us crazy. Child's doing its own thing. We are having the reaction, getting cut off in traffic, not getting our change back correctly from a vendor of some kind. Let's escalate it. Not being able to connect with my mom as much as I'd like to. She can't say I love you, or she's not even aware of what she does. A parent, a partner. I mean, this can be anything from the minute to the huge and massive. So the thing that triggers us doesn't matter. The important thing is finding an awareness of when we are in a triggered state. And this can be challenging too, because most often when we're triggered, we're having a fight, flight, freeze, fawn response. We're having a physiological reaction where our adrenaline's spiking, we get a cortisol dump, and not only are we empowered, we are righteous in our reaction. We are strong and we are justified because the system is telling us something out here has touched a bruise or hit a trauma point or a touch point from our past. This is no longer a safe situation. So, like if we're in a submarine, slam the hatch, dive. We're at DEFCON 2. Let's go, game on. So when we're triggered, we are off of our middle ground. We are out of balance. We are having a physiological reaction. The challenge is that we tend to stay in low grade states of that all the time because of the way we were raised, because of the rules that we got either from school or from our households or from a belief system or from a society. And there are conditions that exist that benefit from keeping us on our edge. That people tend to purchase more when they are in a stressful state. People tend to consume more things, media, food, energy, gas. If we're I'm stressed. I just need to go for a drive. We tend to be consuming more when we are off of our balance. And there are energies and people in the world advertising that want to keep us there because it makes money. A lot of other reasons for that. So it's up to us to dance with that dance partner or not. Just like if we're in an experience and we say something and a parent, a sibling, a partner gets reactive, it's a choice to step into that dance or not. Doesn't feel like it, but that's what this practice is about. So when we're in a triggered state, we feel a heightened energy, whether it's anger or fear or resistance or dismissal, judgment.
I would feel an ache in my chest.
An ache in the chest. And this is the next step. We're not just triggered in our thoughts. There is a mind-body component to it. And the biggest factor really to shifting out is identifying what that feeling is.
You're like, whoa, I'm feeling off. Something has got me and I don't quite, sometimes we know exactly what it is, but sometimes we don't.
Or sometimes it's, I'm so furious right now. Well, where do you feel it? Everywhere. So the more that we can connect an idea or a thought with where we are feeling it in our body, we're going to be more successful in shifting out of that more quickly because we've got a signpost, we've got a barometer for how this feels.
We're acknowledging it.
So it can be we just feel we're crampy all of a sudden. Our intestines get all just bound up, that tightness in the chest. I was working with a client the other day and they felt theirs right in the middle of the back. It was just like somebody smacked them with a 2x4 right below their shoulders. So again, it's hyper personal, and it's our opportunity to find that, just like we said, that break in the clouds, that little gap in the doorway that's going to give us that, it's going to arrive us at that place where we come at that crossroads of, okay, I'm feeling really righteous. I'm feeling really justified. This is feeling really powerful. Oh, wait, this is also a reaction. And then we have a choice. Do I want to, throw off the ballasts and go for it and have that reaction? Or do I want to redirect? Do I want to pull myself or push myself out of this place? So when we're in a triggered state, we are not playing, from a sports analogy, heads up ball. We're not really engaged in what's currently going on because our system is running a program that did something. It served a purpose in the past, and there's function to it. The challenge is that as we grow, our system tends to generalize the experience because it's efficient. Our system doesn't want to work overtime unless it has to. So instead of it being a specific experience in which we feel a heightened state, it generalizes it. So we feel a similar heightened state with a multitude of different experiences. And this can be one of the factors that really make identifying the trigger more challenging, is because we're living in a generalized, low-grade stress response a lot of the time. So the more often we can redirect ourselves to that balanced state, the more often we can, even if it's integrating a practice of a daily practice of disruptive, positive disruption. It's kind of like doing the homework, but we're doing the homework for the mind-body system. So when we're not here right now, which is what happens in a triggered response.
Well, let's talk about the brain.
Yep.
So what happens in the brain is that, when you're in a high functioning state, our prefrontal cortex is activated. That's where we get higher mind functioning. We can use reasoning, critical thinking, all these things that develop, especially after we're age 25, we start to get better at those things.
And the prefrontal cortex is the left and the right hemisphere. Kelly mentioned it earlier.
So when we're in the state that Kevin was talking about, if something's got our goat and we're in a triggered reaction, that part of our brain shuts down and we get into the amygdala, which is like lizard brain. That is caveman functioning. So it's like Kelly is not even here right now. Kevin is not here right now. And when one or both partners gets into that place where your prefrontal cortex has shut down and you're operating from caveman functioning, there's nothing good that will come of it. So that's where we have to create a shift in that moment.
And this is every or potentially all relationships, parent to child, parent to sibling, friendships, partnerships, child to parent in an adult relationship. And so each one of those is going to be its own unique expression.
Yeah. We're often operating from history and memory. So this is also what Kevin was talking about. You can just think about a father getting off the phone with their child every day saying, be safe,
Mm.
be safe, be careful, be careful. The dad doesn't even know he's doing it. Imagine how many times that may have been installed over the course of a child's life, even into adulthood, even as you're entering your later adulthood. Be
Yeah.
careful. So where would that hold you back in life? Does that hold you back in business, in relationships? Are you overly fearful as you go out into the world? So all those little things start to get implanted. So that can be a trigger.
Yeah.
We can have a tough time at work where we didn't get the raise and we got in trouble from an interaction that happened with a coworker. And we're feeling like unacknowledged, unheard, judged. And then we're out in traffic and somebody cuts us off. And that's where the generalization comes in. It's like, well, here's another representative, a representation of how I've been unacknowledged. I've been totally ignored. I've been totally screwed over. And then, wow, it sparks to blow
Yeah.
up. So we want to talk about first is recognition. You have to recognize that I am out of alignment. I went from a state of balance or presence to a state of now I'm pissed off, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm disappointed, I'm knocked off kilter, I feel discombobulated, I feel chaotic, I feel anxious, I feel stressed. So that's a recognition, is that I'm in this state.
A lot of times one signifier can be if we go to like the the biggest sense of it, like, oh, this always happens to me. Anytime we're in a this always happens, or I knew this was going to happen, chances are we are in a reaction, we're in a response. So it's the subtleties. It wasn't, in Kelly's example, it wasn't necessarily the being cut off in traffic that was the trigger. It was a trigger that was like a spark following its way up to dynamite, and it got sparked in something else, and then it exploded in this situation. And so they do morph and they do transform, which is one of the biggest opportunities and somewhat of a challenge to really pinpoint what the thing is and tracing it back to its origin.
So let's address what happens, because usually this is in relationship to another person. I'm having an interaction with somebody, they do or say something that sets me off because it's hitting on my bruise. It's poking me where I have something that's bothering me. Because usually when we're in a good state and somebody does or says something, you just go, oh, whatever, maybe brush it off.
Yeah.
But if somebody does or says something that sparks a fire in you that, you feel an emotional reaction to, let's talk about what we can do first of all for that other person. So I'd actually like to talk about, first of all, like, let's say you recognize it and you don't take the bait. So somebody says or does something, you're like, whoa, okay.
So the very first step is recognition of our own internal state. And this is in and of a practice in and of itself. So there's something going on outside of us that creates a response within our physiology. We have a window to recognize that. We have a window to observe that before we grab the stick or take the bait, like Kelly said.
Yeah. So let's say in this first case that we recognize the other person we're talking to is in a reactive state. They do or say something. We see that, oh, wow, I have an opportunity, but I'm not going to take the bait because I'm in a state of observation right now. And I know what happens when I take the bait. So let's say that I'm in a more calm place and I need to hold space for a partner. So what I can do is, first of all, recognize. So I'm noticing what's happening. I'm like, whoa, it's like waking up from the program. I'm seeing it happen. And then I can validate their experience just by repeating what I think is going on. And that doesn't mean that I'm agreeing with them. It's meaning, okay, I can sense that something's going on. And then you can ask for clarification. It seems like you're really pissed off about
Mhm.
something. And then go, yeah, this is what happened to me today. And then you repeat back. You say, okay, so I'm hearing you say,
Yeah.
at work it was really tough today. You didn't get that raise that you wanted, and one of your colleagues threw you under the bus.
Yeah.
I can see how that'd be really frustrating.
Oh, it was infuriating. It sucked.
So there I'm if I don't understand, I can ask for
Yeah.
clarification. I can say, man, you seemed even more distraught than that when you walked in. Did something else happen?
And this is,
And then you might
yeah,
say,
no, but that was, or yes, again, it
somebody
does
cut
whatever, but yeah, yeah, yeah.
right. So I have a chance to ask for clarity. Is that really what's going on? Because otherwise I'm going to take it personally and I'm being like, why are you being a jerk to me? But if I can ask, what's going on? What are the circumstances around it? Do I understand what you're saying?
Yeah,
And
it
then
feels like that feels like that was awful. I'm observing, it feels like
I can
those are,
feel the weight of that.
yeah, I can feel that energy. That's awful that you had to that you had to carry that all day.
And now you're going into the last part. So that's the empathizing. So again, it doesn't mean that you have to agree, because someone might say something directed at you that you don't agree with at
Right.
all. But you're just saying, well, I hear your perspective.
I
I see where
understand.
you're coming from. I see your point of view. And I'm either letting you know I understand your point of view, or I'm asking for clarity. If it makes no sense to me whatsoever, I'm going to ask until it makes sense. That doesn't mean I agree with the other person. It just means I understand. And then I empathize. Whoa, well, that's really sucks. I'm so sorry that you didn't get that raise. Or, wow, tell me more about what happened at work. That sounds so frustrating.
Now, holding that space is disengaging from a familiar dance. And so it can be that in this engagement of holding that space for another while we recognize there's a reaction happening, that can actually add fuel to the fire. That can make them more angry. Or, okay, I see what you're doing, and it's really, it's making it even worse right now. So then we have options as well. We can pull the ripcord and say, you know what? I'm starting to feel like I'm getting drawn in and I really don't want to say something that I don't mean. So I think it's best if we just take a few minutes, walk around, and this is where we get into the tools. I'm just going to go to the bathroom real quick, and then you can do a cross crawl. You can do some breathing. You can do a whole brain exercise. There's a number of other exercises that we can do to shift out of that we'll share. And then always set a time. So if we recognize, so if Kelly's approach gets it to a place of, oh, that wasn't received that well for whatever reason, then we have additional tools. We can continue to hold this space and just let the other person speak. We can put a pause in it and say, let's cool off and then come back because I really want to work through this because this doesn't feel like a really great way to have any day. Or we have the opportunity to pull back that lens in that space for ourselves and say, okay, why am I getting drawn? Why am I about to get drawn into this reaction? So that we can start almost in real time saying, all right, I'm feeling it. I'm not there. What's that about? So we have the opportunity to hold the space, to create space, or to go on the internal space, depending on what's available to us in the moment.
So let's recap that. So let's say somebody else comes at us. It could be a group of people, it could be a single person. We are able to hold our own awareness. We're like, oh, something's about to happen. I can feel it shifting. So number one, recognition. I recognize something is going down. I recognize a feeling that's starting to happen inside of me. I'm recognizing my partner, my friend, my family member, my co-worker, colleague. They are in it. Okay. Now, and they may do what we perceive as an attack. They may lash out. And the first thing that we can do is just ignore the bait. Don't take the bait. Your only job in that moment is to not take the bait. It just go, whoa, okay. So
hold the line, hold the
that's the
space.
recognition. I recognize what's happening. I recognize somebody around me is in a reaction. I'm feeling myself with the opportunity to get drawn into that, especially if we feel attacked, but we're not going to take the bait. So number one, recognition. Number two is we validate. That just means this is what I think you're trying to say. Is that what is going on?
Or I'm hearing.
And if they're arguing with you, if they are attacking you, you just want to let them understand their perspective. Like, what I hear you trying to say is, I think this is your point of view. This is the point you're trying to get across, right? And then
No,
they
that's
have,
not it. Or
right.
yeah, you get it.
Then they
And
can
then if it's no,
clarify.
that's not it. And then it can be, I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. Can you just tell me to me in a different way? So say it to me in a different way, because I really want to understand this.
So number 3, so that doesn't mean you agree. You can empathize. Like, okay, I forgot to take the garbage out again. I can see how that'd be frustrating. It wasn't my intention to be frustrating. It was on the last end of my list and I totally forgot about it. I know that's frustrating. I'm sorry. Nobody wants to look at that garbage all day, so it's like empathizing with the person. So now that's what we do when we're holding space for another individual.
So
right?
recognize, validate, and then the recognition is both
empathize.
ways. Recognizing there is a reaction going on, and most likely because our mind bodies are so powerful, there is some sort of a reaction going on as well. So recognizing ours and recognizing the situation, validating, hey, okay, yeah, I'm feeling a reaction, and this is where we get into that interpersonal communication. I'm seeing just everything. Oh man, like, yeah, it sees it, I see, and it feels like that was a really gnarly thing. This is what I heard. And then you parrot it back, you repeat.
So now
Empathize.
if this interaction doesn't go well,
Right.
you start to feel like you are losing it. That's when you have to recognize that it's time to cut and then leave for a moment.
Because again,
Right.
neither of us are really there at that point. When we're in a reaction, both
Prefrontal cortex has shut
down. We get kicked into the back seat or in the trunk of this car, and our limbic system, that subconscious protection mechanism, takes the wheel and burns rubber in whatever direction it needs to.
Okay. So then again, just to reiterate, what we're doing then is saying, I feel my blood boiling. No good is going to come of this. Kelly is not here right now. Can we meet after dinner tonight? Can we meet tomorrow at lunch and talk about this? I know it's important. So the other person does not feel abandoned. They know we can come back to it, but then you have a chance to get the prefrontal cortex to come back online. So Kevin's going to guide us into some ways that we can do that now. So this is now, we're getting into how do you hold space for yourself? Because we've done our best to hold space for the other person, let them speak, be understood, empathize. And then if we're like, whoa, okay, no good is coming from this, now we need to hold space for ourselves.
And real quick, a lot of times with that situation where say it just became the interaction just became a powder keg, and we're recognizing, even though we want to jump in because it feels righteous and powerful, that nothing good's going to come from it, it's important to set a time to come back to it. Because so often both people get into a reaction, and then a lot of times one person will want to really hash it out right there and the other person doesn't. And then it ends up just exploding or imploding. And then there's no fruition. There's no coming back or reconciliation. So if we do get in that state, one or many bruises have been poked. So we can take that as an opportunity to excavate when we're back in a balanced state and really get under the surface and find what is going on that was triggering that. Where does this bruise come up? I didn't think this was there anymore. So how do we hold space for ourselves? Again, recognition is key. If we are not actively engaged in experience, physically, mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually experiencing life in the moment, we're missing internal cues. We're missing internal opportunities. And we're really living life from here up, which is an incomplete expression where we tend to try and outthink or outmaneuver our way out of situations instead of giving ourselves that grace and that opportunity to feel the thing, either release it and move past it, or if we decide, we can get underneath it and see what's there. So number one step in that game is recognition. Number two step in that game is disruption. If we recognize we're in a reactive state and we don't disrupt it, we're just going to keep on driving, or our system is going to keep on driving that car with us in the back seat or in the trunk. So I always like to say, to disrupt is divine, especially a negative feeling, reaction, or emotion. So when we recognize it, we can use a whole brain exercise, which is crossing the midline of the body and giving our brain something a little more challenging to do. So at the beginning of the class, we did cross crawls. So left hand, right knee, right hand, left knee. That is fairly challenging, especially at first. And then we're also using the direction of our gaze to go left and right. So we're crossing. Another one we did, actually, we combined them with another whole brain exercise, crossing the wrists and the ankles. And you can roll that up and give yourself a nice little hug, bending your pinkies to your chest. Rest these clasped hands in your lap, or as we did before, because we were switching a little more rapidly, keep them uncrossed. So this creates a closed circuit whole brain state.
Let's show that one more time because it's kind of confusing
Yeah.
in the beginning. So the arms.
So for everyone, if you're seated, feet on the ground, go ahead and cross your right ankle over your left, and then go ahead and cross your right wrist over your left. Now your hands can rest on your legs from here. Turn your thumbs down, interlace your fingers, and you can rest your clasped hand grasp in your lap. Or if you fold under and in, going up, you arrive giving yourself a nice little self hug in this version of that whole brain posture. If you give yourself 3 minutes, maybe even 5 minutes if you have it, of just nice, relaxed, diaphragmatic breathing in this posture, this is when it's like, you know what, I just need to grab something out of the bedroom. I just need to go to the restroom real quick. Just like a coach, we're giving ourselves a timeout. We're calling a timeout for ourselves, which again can be challenging because it feels righteous and justified to be in a reactive state sometimes.
But it feels usually better to be peaceful, joyful, loving. Those are higher emotions.
In my own experience, every day of the week and twice on Sunday, absolutely. And the other challenge is that the physiological reactions they're pulling from our adrenal, our nervous, and our immune systems. So the more that we pull from those limited reserves, the more we're going to feel frayed, the more we're going to feel just fried and like I can't handle it or I can't do it, because we've really been drawing on those reserves for years. And so finding ways to come back to that balanced state that we can integrate with our life that work for us. So we've got cross crawls, we've got whole brain, we've got heel drops, which is something where you just come up on your toes and drop your heels. Come up on your toes and drop your heels. The same thing, we start looping. So this is
disrupting the previous state that you found yourself in.
It's a physiological disruption. So jumping rope, heel drops, jumping jacks, they're all rebounding techniques. I like the option of going for a walk because it's a triple threat. You're getting out in nature, you're rebounding with your steps, and you're breathing. So even a walk around the block can be a beautiful disruption. Well, I walked around the block and I got back home and I'm still feeling it. All right, take another lap. This is really about giving our system that space. And some ways that we can do it where it's a little bit more available to us. So we don't feel so angry with our system for having this reaction, or we don't feel so sad or remorseful that we've had this same reaction, is really approaching this catching of the reaction with empathy or with humor. And so those are both ways that we can use to, as a combination of these physiological practices, to really get to that place of letting our system know we're not in that situation that it was reactive to so many years ago that it's now generalized. We're here and now in life. So, okay, we can calm it a little bit. So looking at it with humor, we can name that critic or that reaction. Like, oh, there's Peabody Jones the third, whatever that name is for us, create a personification of that internal reaction so we can start creating a different relationship with it. Or with empathy, we can utilize a memory from our past. When we can look at it as there's a little child inside saying, this is scary, this is dangerous, I don't feel safe, I don't feel loved, I don't feel worthy, I don't feel something, get us out of here. So we can talk to that aspect of ourselves. Like, I know something's going on from the past, we're okay. And then we employ those disruption techniques once we've caught that with recognition to bring ourselves back to a balanced state where we're going to be able to operate more successfully from.
You know, I just think it'd be cool if we get people in a whole brain state
Mm.
and think about the last time they had this type of reaction. And we'll guide them through a questioning process so that they can get a little bit deeper and see what's under that.
I like that.
You know, I heard this concept that when we bury someone, it's 6 feet deep. So we need to get like 5 or 6 whys deep. So to me, it's like what's and whys, like
Yeah.
what's underneath that reaction?
Why did
I feel that way? What's behind that? So let's all come up with the last time you felt yourself get irritated, angry, upset, triggered. Maybe somebody falsely accused you of something or got in your face about something, and you're like, what the heck? I'm not doing anything.
had a reaction,
Mhm.
or you were shut down for some reason, whatever it is,
Mhm.
either bring it to mind or go ahead and just jot it down if you have pen and paper.
The last big time.
Big trigger. And again, we are our best guides. So nobody knows our terrain as well as we do. So this is going to be hyper personal for each and every one of us. So take a second to jot that down.
There are a couple ways that you can go at it. Remember, in the beginning of our workshop, we taught all 4 crossovers. We did right leg on top, right arm on top, and then we switched the arms, a few breaths, and then we switched the legs, a few breaths, and then we switched the arms. We will send you a little video of that so that you can have it for later. So that's the way to ensure that you're in the most balanced state. If you have a little extra time, we recommend doing that. Otherwise, you can just choose which one feels the most comfortable, or you ask higher self, wisdom self, super conscious, is it best to have me sit with the right leg over the left? And just which one feels the most comfortable, same with the arms. And for the sake of time today, we'll just have you choose whatever leg you want to put on top, crossed at the ankle, whatever arm you want to have on top, crossed at the wrist. So if your wrists are sore or you have any pain you're experiencing at all, you just rest the hands in the lap. Otherwise, you'll interlace the fingers and then either put the hands in the lap or roll the knuckles up to the heart. So yeah, bring to mind that experience, that triggered state that you found yourself in.
Go ahead and relax your abdomen and connect with nostril breathing. Nice slow inhale, pulling up from the base of the belly to the top of the lungs. Nice even exhale from the top of the lungs to the base of the belly. So for this practice, our breath is our anchor. So staying connected to that nice open breath and staying in this whole brain posture are going to anchor us in for this practice. So starting off at the very surface of the experience, whatever it was, what was it that got me so upset? Go ahead and ask yourself that question, and you can stay open and curious for an answer. Stop thinking, what was it that got me so upset? I wonder what it was. Or you can jot it down if you already know. Our next layer down is, why does that bother me? Why did that bother me so much? Either open that up to get an answer, or if you already have an idea, go ahead and jot that down. Now we're getting into some deeper areas of this experience. We're getting out of the action that took place or the reaction that we had to that action. So now we're going to go a little deeper. So what got me upset? Why did it bother me so much? What is beneath that? Or what is behind that? When did I feel this way before? Other questions we can excavate those layers with are, is that really true? Let's say we get to an answer of, he doesn't care, she doesn't care, she doesn't love me, she doesn't trust me. When have I felt that way before? Or is that really true? A lot of times our systems are negatively oriented out of survival. So if we start hearing those negative voices on the inside, that's actually not us. That's not our essence. That's our system trying to keep us safe. So then disrupt. Reconnect to those anchors. Maybe switch the crossing of your wrists and ankles. And sometimes we'll get into this process and we'll start to feel a reaction again. Just like stepping away from a poker table, let's say. Take that step back. We don't need to stay engaged if we're feeling a reaction. That's our sovereign right to say, hey, I've got that recognition. All right, what do I need to do for myself right now to get me back to this place of inquiry, this balanced state? When did I experience this before? When was the first time I can remember feeling this way? And the deeper we get, the more expansive staying open and curious to the answers we're looking for can be. Getting out of the conscious mind and really enabling that subconscious to say, hey, this is what was going on. This is why we've been working so hard and so reactive to these things, because it could be getting radically honest with ourselves. It doesn't feel safe to be loved or to love. Or if we get beneath in Kelly's example of taking the trash out, well, if I ask for the trash to be taken out and it isn't done, then I must not be worthy, lovable, acceptable, important enough to listen to. So we're getting to those root, like, oh my gosh, that's wow, yeah, I didn't see that being connected, or those aha moments or those connections to what we're currently responding to physiologically, and then seeing if we can't unravel that onion, peel back that onion, or get through those sediment layers with questioning. What got me so upset? Why does it bother me so much? What's behind that? Is that true? Is that really true? When have I felt like that before? Is there a pattern here that I'm experiencing that I can shift out of? So if we're looking for a baseline,
Would you like people to release the process?
sorry. So go ahead and jot down.
So letting go of the whole brain posture, rolling out your wrists and ankles if you need to.
Thank you. Maybe there was a slightly new awareness or a deeper understanding for you in that process. If so, go ahead and just jot down a note or two. We can always come back and continue that inquiry. A lot of times our triggers stem from a feeling of being disconnected. And a lot of times that disconnection is from feeling disconnected from ourselves. And that's why we spend so much time out here trying to fill space in here, because there's a perceived void, there's a perceived space of not having, whether it's not having love, not feeling worthy, not feeling safe. And so what these practices are is really getting back to that baseline of physiology. It's almost like hitting system reset, getting us back to a more balanced state so we can have more of a balanced inquiry, get greater insight, and reduce the impact those triggers have on us.
So when you have awareness, you have a choice and you can consciously create. So let's say you've gone and found a quiet space in your bedroom, in the restroom, outside in nature, in your car. You do some cross crawls, you do some whole brain posture, some breathing, some self inquiry. You're tuning in, you're asking yourself, why did I react to this? Because when it's not a bruise, it doesn't bother you. If you're tall and someone calls you short, you're like, whatever. If you're secure and someone calls you insecure, you don't believe it. But it's when we believe those things, when we feel harmed by what was said or done, that's on us to figure out. So we do the inner inquiry. Why did that bother me? Where does that come from? And now, from this more state of understanding and peaceful presence, now our prefrontal cortex has turned back on, and now we have choice. So let's go over some of the choices that we can make.
So arriving at choice, recognizing that we are not our reactions, but we are the ones experiencing them. We can choose to come back to the situation, the interpersonal exchange at the designated time with more conscious communication. We're not pointing the finger, we are sharing from the inside. And this can feel, if we've never done it before, this can feel like jumping off a high dive or stepping off a cliff. But if we are honestly, evenly, and compassionately communicating what we are experiencing, that is a massive way that we can, again, hold that space, create that space for another to do the same. So I statements, I'm feeling, I'm sensing, it feels like to me. If we are about to say something, is it kind? Is it balanced? And is it necessary? So a lot of times we'll point fingers and hurl accusations when we're feeling defensive. So this disengages that. So conscious communication, I statements, and is it kind? Is it necessary? And is it helpful? We can look at steps that we can take to a solution. So if this is the garbage situation, well, the garbage is important for me, and you're not doing something that's important for me, so therefore you don't love me. Or it could just be it's not a priority for the other person. And if not, what is? So if garbage is a priority for person A and getting the laundry done is a priority for person B, and we're constantly trying to make the other person like us, that can just create friction in the relationship. Instead of saying, well, you don't care about the garbage, I do. I hate doing laundry, but you don't mind it. So how about I do the garbage and you do the laundry? Boom. It's not always that simple, but starting with simple ways that we can get beyond this current space can be very powerful as well. Clearing that space, getting some rest, getting centered, balanced, and grounded, and then coming back to it. That's a way to have greater choice in not only what we're looking at, but how we're looking at it. And so for two people to come from a conscious, connected place and problem solve is way different than two people coming to almost battle and defending their positions. Share the feelings, that empathizing with ourselves and being open enough to have that conscious communication to say, hey, when the garbage isn't taken out and I've asked, it makes me feel unheard, unseen, worthless, unloved,
Unappreciated. You don't care.
Right. And then that's where well, it's not that I don't care, I just hate taking out the garbage. And then we can get to those dynamic.
That's when you do the inner inquiry. Is that true? Does that mean my husband doesn't love me if he
Right.
doesn't take the garbage out? I don't think so.
Right.
It means he just doesn't want to do it.
And then the actual space that you are meeting in. So if we really want to front load ourselves for success, grab some water and get outside with whoever you're talking with.
On a blanket, on a chair, get out in nature, go for a walk together.
Child, friend, parent, anyone. Nature is a beautiful space holder. We're staying hydrated. We've brought some water. We brought some tea, make it a little picnic. We can even do a tea ceremony with each other. But meeting outside in a place that is neutral and in nature can be massively impactful as well. So we have choice not only of how we want to experience things differently on the inside, but we can choose how we want to move forward with others as well. The most important thing, once again, is getting back to that balanced state in order to make those choices.
And Kevin talked about compromise. So that might be, how about we change jobs? You do this and I do that. So coming to an agreement or a compromise to come closer together, because we want to get what we want. And we also want those that we love to get what they want as well. Instead of me against you, it's us together. Well, I would like to enjoy my life. I also want my friends, family, partner to enjoy their experience. So how can we both get the most of what we want? And then if you're not able to have an agreement, then there's a negotiation. So you might think of, religious leaders coming together to solve a problem, political leaders coming together where they have totally different outlooks. They want totally different things, but they have to negotiate in order to get a certain need met. I had this experience with someone I was working with recently where she works very long hours all day long. She asked her husband to come in and cook a meal twice a week. They have an adult son, I think around 20 years old, living at home with them who pays rent. The son is never home for dinner. He's always out with his friends or somewhere out and about. So he's not home for a dinner meal. But the father said, son, it's time that you step up the plate and I want you to cook 2 dinners per week. And the wife goes, that doesn't make any sense. He's not even home in the first place. Now you're asking him to come home and cook. I wanted you to do. I want to feel like we're partners. We're in collaboration. I want you to do it, So if the husband doesn't want to do it, then what a negotiation might be is, well, how about you cook 1 meal and we have our son cook 1 meal? And that way we get our family together at least once a week. So there's some type of agreement, even though you have 2 different perspectives. Can we make a move that we can both come a little closer to the middle and both get closer to what we want? And it's challenging if your needs are so different. We might see this with partners and sexuality. Well, I want to have sex 10 times a week. Well, I want to have sex 1 time every 2 weeks. Well, those are very different wants and needs. So what could we do? Well, how can we get a little bit closer to center so we both get more of what we want?
And the best way, the most important thing again is communicating that and talking about that in a balanced way. Because if we're in reaction, then we are going to feel like everything is a need. If I don't have this, then I won't be able to function. Then whatever. We can go, there's any number of.
So balanced state, before you meet, you're doing your cross crawls, you're doing your whole brain posture, you're hydrated, you're sitting out in nature.
And then collaborating, and we are working together to get what both of us want, or to compromise so we each get some of what we want. Because when we get dropped into a reaction, our system locks into this zero-sum perception of life. You're either with us or against us, which isn't true. There's no real expression of that. Life is not black and white like that. But if we're in a reaction, it can feel that way because we're in a survival mode. So getting out of that, getting into more of a collaborative space is it's amazingly powerful.
Now, if one person gets triggered during that conversation, sitting out on the grass in nature on a blanket, the other person, you, can be the space holder. If you get triggered as well, then again, no good will come from that. We have to agree to come back at a later time.
So
let's go for a walk. Let's go do our thing. Let's come back after dinner tonight. But imagine, what if you decided to sit on this blanket with your partner and you held hands and you looked into each other's eyes when you talked? In nature, that could be very powerful, especially when one of you is pretty pissed off. It's hard when you're looking in each other's eyes and you have like a physical touch or connection. Suddenly you soften a little bit. I mean, you could try that with even a sibling or a parent where you,
a child,
a little kid. So also allowing time for each other to talk without interrupting. And that's hard when it's he said, she said, or you said, I said, letting them get their voice expressed, waiting for a moment and then saying, did I hear you right? What I think you're saying is, I hear you saying that you're frustrated about this. I totally get that, and then offer your perspective. So allowing one another to speak without interrupting, giving yourselves a pause, that little beat in between can make all the difference between being in reaction or deciding with choice how you wish to consciously communicate in a peaceful way. So what I'd like to do now is teach us a little sensory experience. This is used for people that have PTSD. This is used for people that have anxiety attacks or people that are just overly anxious. And it's a technique to quickly bring you into a state of peaceful presence. So in addition to the cross crawls and the whole brain seated posture, this will be another one in your tool belt, your toolbox that you can utilize to really quickly bring you back to center. So it starts, I call this, by the way, the present geolocator. So it starts by just looking around whatever space you're in and naming to yourself 3 things that you see. So just look around and just notice, say it to yourself. I see that, I see that, and I see that. Okay. Now close your eyes and notice 3 things that you hear. Name them to yourself. Now you're welcome to keep eyes open or closed for the next part. Notice one thing that you taste. So it could have been the last thing you ate or drank. Maybe you brushed your teeth not too long ago. Maybe it's something that you smell in the air that lingers on your tongue in a way that you can taste. Something that you smell. And name something that you can feel on your body. So that could be the air, your clothing, the hair on your body, like the hair on your head. It could be a watch on your wrist. So something that you feel. And then open your eyes. So real quick, present geolocator. 3 things that you see, 3 things that you hear, 1 thing that you smell, 1 thing that you taste, and 1 thing that you feel on your skin. And then all of a sudden you're very grounded. You're right here in the present moment. And often that'll turn on the prefrontal cortex. So those are all techniques that you can do very quickly to bring yourself back to a balanced state so that you don't say things that you regret and let blow up arguments happen.
Or let those undercurrents of dis-ease and animosity or anger just keep running for months, weeks, even years.
Yeah. A few things in closing. Next month.
So real quick, so what happens if we're in the inquiry, we're practicing the recognition and the awareness, we're disrupting the process as we're getting back to a balanced state, and there's still something there? So that's where I myself look for a helper. I look for a practitioner or some way that can give me, because we've all got blinders on to certain things.
There was stuff I never knew until I worked with an emotional kinesiologist, and I would have bet $1 million something different was going on. And then once we got to the root of what was going on, and tears were streaming down my face, which was how I knew it was real. Sometimes we got to go deeper.
So the important thing is getting to that subconscious layer. So whether it's EMDR, whether it's hypnosis, whether it's subconscious transformation, emotional kinesiology work, or even parts work or reconnection, the important thing is we're getting to that subconscious where a lot of us are blocked from or have blinders onto. But with a practitioner, we can get in short order, not only to identifying what the thing is, but then releasing it and transforming it so that energetic load that is triggering these responses really isn't there for that reaction to have anymore.
And we would love to be your
So
practitioner. If you would feel like
yeah.
you want to work with Kevin or I, we would be honored to be your guide on that journey.
So with that, we can work
Mhm.
one-on-one. We also have group offerings where we look at subconscious transformation, stress or a trauma release, asking questions and getting answers from our higher self monthly. So every Wednesday, we've got that opportunity. You can try that out. That's an online Zoom. It's in a group setting, a singular focus for the day. You bring what you're working on. We help to transform it together.
Yeah, we have an in-person relationship course that will be starting in January in Encinitas, California, and it'll be 2 hours a week for 6 weeks in a row, held on Sundays. That'll be on January 22nd. And then for those that live out of the area, we already have a relationship course available online right now that you take. And Kevin has office hours every Thursday from 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific time to answer any questions. So for that, you would be doing it on your own. You'll be doing your weekly practice, but any questions that arise, Kevin can be there to answer.
And so these relationship courses are really extensions of what we're talking and integrations of what we're talking about today. It's really shifting the script internally and looking at it through the lens of radical honesty, radical empathy, radical acceptance, radical balance, and understanding the radical nature of energy in life that really give us the tools to launch us in the direction we want to go instead of maybe trying to get away from where we've been.
Yep. And then next month on the 19th of December, we're offering another complimentary workshop. I will be guiding us through end of the year journaling. So this is where you bring a nice candle, light it, or some incense, get your little mug of hot cocoa or tea or coffee, and I'll guide us through some inner inquiry about, how did the year go for you? What were some of the challenges that you faced? What were some of the wins and beautiful moments you experienced? How do you wish to move forward into the next year? So it'll be an hour where I'll guide you through some journaling. So I hope to see you guys there. And we're going to send you an email that will have the replay, and it'll have everything we're talking about right now, all the opportunities to continue to work together.
Links to the exercises, links to those positive disruption techniques.
And then if anybody has questions, we will stick around for the next 15 minutes. You can put those questions in the chat. If anybody needs to go, we understand. And thank you guys so much for being here today. It was our pleasure to guide you.